My name is Jamex de la Torre.
And I'm his brother, Einar de la Torre.
For us to collaborate is a challenge, like any challenge, but I think it works for us because we have complementary personalities and skills. I mean, I have older brothers who are artists, and I don't think I could collaborate with them just because I think we would clash too much. It's a delicate process, no matter what. But I think we're very lucky in the fact that we were able to build this trust that's necessary to the collaborative process.
Yeah, I think we learned early on when we started to collaborate, it was sort of he was doing his work and I was doing my own work. And I might come to him and say, hey, maybe do this, or you might suggest something for me. And if I didn't feel strongly about it, I might say, go for it, try it. But we learned early on, you cannot do it with the parking brake on. You can't say, hey, do whatever you want, just don't mess it up. Because you have to have the freedom to do whatever you want in order to have the creative process flow. If you have this, if you're waiting, thinking maybe I shouldn't do this or that, it's not happening in the best way. And we've learned, of course, to collaborate. It took a while for that to smooth out. A few times, maybe it went rough in the beginning, but now we recognize each other's strengths and we trust each other because of it. And we do bring different things. Maybe I'm more of a colorist and he's more of a sculptor shape. I do more digital work, he does more of the engineering, and that happens in sculpture making.
Being older doesn't bring me this seniority or authority over my younger brother. When we first started blowing glass, well, of course, I taught him the very basics, but that was a long time ago, back in the 81 or so. So nowadays, no, it's a completely shared responsibility.
But even then, I think that he was very interested in figurative work, and I was really interested first in color pickups, and I worked with Canon and all these other things that you do when you're learning to use glass. And even all through the 80s, we made our own separate work. And in the 90s, when we started to exhibit in earnest, I think we could have an exhibit that might be a third his work, a third my work, and a third collaborative. That's by the mid-90s. And already by the end of the 90s, early 2000s, we're already doing full shows of collaborative work. And right now, we don't even have time. When we work alone, we're doing things for the collaborative enterprise. So even if one of us is away, we're working through computers, using Skype, communicating about what you're doing in the studio, what I'm doing. Maybe I'm shooting imagery for new lenticular work, which is one of the big focuses we're doing now.
One aspect about collaborating that I think is really special is that it releases you from complete responsibility to have it to become this creative genius. We believe that it's a myth that there's such thing as a lone creative genius. We're all part of communities. But when you do that, when you collaborate and you're released of that complete responsibility, it allows you to try things maybe you wouldn't otherwise try. It gives you this strength in numbers. And if ultimately things don't succeed, the blame is also shared. So it's like the evil twin syndrome. They egg each other to try something that they maybe wouldn't otherwise try. We don't often get to blow glass. So as at dinner at glass blowers, each opportunity is invaluable to us. We really miss it when we don't get an opportunity to blow glass. And here in UrbanGlass, we're getting a bit of time to develop ideas. And I also like to say that when we do the important demonstrations with doing a bigger piece, sometimes they don't allow us to run more creatively because we have the pressure to produce a showpiece. And having a little bit of time to develop in a smaller scale ideas is invaluable to us too. I wish we could blow glass more than we do.
But we've been lucky. I mean, we rented time relatively little in our career because we will teach in Perche and produce work as we teach. We do teach by example, so when we're doing a demo, it's things that we need as well as things we're interested in showing. We think about it. We're not just thinking, no, if I'm going to need 5 of these, then it's going to become boring for them to see 5 of them made. So that might not happen. But we try to show variety and also show a little bit of the ethic, because it's not just making the glass or making the or assemblage. It's sort of fruition. So sometimes we will teach a class and actually it ends up in a gallery, and that'll happen next year when we teach in Pratt in Seattle. We have a show immediately after in the Torre Gallery. So there will be sort of this, that will bring the students that we have all the way to the gallery with a new work. And I think that that's also a very valuable thing to teach, is the relationship between an artist and a dealer, and the negotiation of the space, and all of those things that are about the practice of being a functioning sort of artist and living off of your work.
To what degree do I need to do my own work to get the results that I want? To the type of glass sculpting that we do, we're hands-on. We need to be completely involved in that medium. That is pretty much what we want to get out of the material. I don't think for an artist it's absolutely necessary to have that intimate relationship to produce good artwork, but there are certain things that the medium will bring you that will only come if you have that intimate relationship with the material. For example, just how the glass is going to move and do the details. You can't predict that. I think if you make a sketch and you say, well, reproduce me this sculpture, the gaffer will just do it in their style. They will not detail it, and they would not let the material speak too.
So, and we've had this experience in a place like Perche, that when you teach there, we've taught there numerous times. We work with gaffers sometimes, and sometimes we work with them swimmingly, and other times they're interpreting their work. And since we're so deeply involved with the technique, then we fight that a little bit and say, no, this is what I want. We have to just get in there and sort of grab it and say, this is what we want out of it. We're fond of saying that the process informs the work. We really are part of that. We don't think it's necessary. We're certainly not absolutist in any way. There's a million ways to skin the cat, and as we get older, I'm sure there's going to be limitations on how big we can make things, and maybe more participation of other people in our work. But at this point, we're happy to still be quite in the middle of it and part of it. Spontaneity is a really, really big part of it. We do enjoy the fact that, we've always been itinerant glass blowers. We're blowing wherever there is. We've never had our own studio. We have our own studio from Mixed Media, and that we do have a very different dynamic there, because then we're alone working. Sometimes we're not even working together. He works on a piece, and then I come back from a trip and so on. And we're communicating sometimes through images and say, this is what I did today, check it out. And so the moments that we're together working are actually rare and more precious, because so much of a career nowadays is office work. But yeah, I think that it has a lot to do with it. The process has a lot to do with our work, both in glass and in mixed media.
From the point of view of a sculptor, there's just simply no other material that is as spontaneous, that even comes close to hot glass. You can have a piece fully polished in bright colors in a day or two, and you can't do that with ceramics or anything else, really.
Yeah, there's waiting periods, or carving stone, of course, is a lot. So yeah, we do like the immediacy. We enjoy saying how it's a little bit of ADD. We have an idea and we want to see it. We want to get it out. And going back to collaborating real quick, I would also like to add that when we teach, we also stress that with the students. It's really hard to be, what my brother touched on, to sort of have your own brilliant ideas. You are a hodgepodge of things that you like, people that have pushed you and influenced you, great teachers, and that's how you became you and your voice. And so when we sort of force the issue with collaborating, we're trying to show people that a lot more can be done in the hot shop if you have friends helping you, and sometimes helping you to the point where they're actually influencing you what the outcome is. And just as long as you're open to these things, it's a great process. I think that the way that we enjoy using material culture in our work is because we are interested in the human condition. I think that that's one thing that does divide art from the craft, is that speaking about the human condition, where craft can speak about the beauty of material and the beauty of nature as well. I think that art has that angle. And when you're picking from material culture, which could be things from the dollar stores or from the art history books, because all of that, after all, becomes material culture the moment that you can download it, and the moment that you can just go and take a picture of it, it becomes consumable. And we're interested in the way that we consume and the way that imagery is consumed by everybody. Everybody's consuming so quickly that we have a challenge as artists to be part of that and visually make a case for our own ideas when everybody's being bombarded by their cell phone that's in their pocket.
We like to say that our work is layered, and we're making what we like to say complex compositions. Sometimes people call them baroque, and we're comfortable with that because we're bringing in a number of experiences and ideas into pieces we see life as a complex life that cannot be distilled into an essence. So that's what we want to do in our work. And influences that have shaped our work is definitely pre-Columbian artwork in central Mexico. The German expressionists, where students influenced it quite a bit in our figures.
And lately, we did a project last year in Belgium, in Lomo, Glass and Piece. And part of our project was to make work there. And they kind of wanted us to reflect a little bit about Flemish culture because they're funded by Flemish Art Foundation. So when we delved into it, we quickly grabbed onto the primitives because Hieronymus Bosch and a couple of other artists were doing stuff, surrealism, way before the term was coined, of course. In fact, the more you look at it, the more you see how much Salvador Dalí was influenced directly, actually, like appropriated images from Bosch. And we've been using this work in our own lenticular panels, which is one of the strongest new direction we've taken lately. We started to do some Photoshop images printed photographically and then coated in a thick coat of epoxy resin to make it glass-like. And sometimes we would incorporate glass, or sometimes we would just use cast resin. That's what we've been working in the last 5-6 years. But in the last, about 5 years ago, we started to work with lenticular, and now more and more as projects are allowing, because it's a fairly costly technique. And we've been working with the Flemish as part of our sort of the idea that the primitives had this connection with the people that was kind of rare, because usually religious paintings were so much more about sort of ideal, and all of a sudden you have images that are showing a bunch of people getting drunk in a bar. Was sort of new to us and so real in many ways. The realism of that was startling, and we are interested in that very much. And of course, the images of heaven and hell are absolutely spectacular, and we've been collaborating with that guy.
Lately, we've been exploring a lot the use of lenticular panels in our work, which are essentially flat, thin pieces of acrylic that give you this incredible three-dimensional effect. But at the same time, we haven't stopped pursuing our installation work and our glass sculpture. They're two of us, all branches of the same thing.
Yeah, so when we're doing wall pieces, almost always we're going to have some level of relief coming out. There's only 2 or 3 acrylic panels of lenticular that we'll leave just that way. We believe that already they have light boxes and they have enough going on. In general, we are trying to marry them with other, whether it's polyester resin castings with inclusions or also with glass. We're interested in making glass pieces that'll come out of it. We have one right now in the gallery that we opened a couple of weeks ago, and show we opened in Miami, the Mindy Solomon Gallery, that people are asking where the glass and where the panel begins, which I thought was a good example of a direction we're interested in. Other ones are we put figurative sculpture in front of the panel, that because it's in a light box, it's quite literally floating in light. There is none of the supports that are holding that fairly heavy glass work are showing at all because of the flood of light and the dispersion of the LED light. So we're enjoying that quite a bit and can see that our work is going to be taking that direction more and more. Making literal representations of the cultures could be problematic if you're not adding anything new to it, in my opinion, because it does seem like if something was already made, it was made, and therefore it's appropriate to that time and that culture. I believe that if you are going to rehash any of that, it should be remixed in a way that makes it contemporary and yours, and something that makes it different, adding to the dialogue as opposed to reproduction. Because again, some things that were made in that context. In Mexico, because 70% of the population is a mixture of the European and indigenous, you have a celebration of all that is the indigenous as part of our heritage. Very different dynamic in terms of political correctness. So the coin is a little Aztec calendar. The hotels are using imagery. It's ubiquitous, and it is mass consumed as part of heritage, sometimes in the wrong way, but I mean, that's kind of part of consuming, is that not always does that something get consumed or packaged in a way that it should. But on the other hand, the good part of it is that there is a general sort of love and feeling of belonging to some of this, whether you're 90% European or 20. Where there's a lot of discontent and huge swing between the rich and the poor, but at least there's a common feeling of what these things mean. That is a very different dialogue than there would be in the United States.
I think that the way we work, the layered way that we work, and complicated layered work is always in danger of becoming muddled. So keeping an essence in design is extremely important to us, because we want to be able to have all the players in the orchestra be heard in their own space. So, you know, we're always very conscious of that. So usually when we make a composition, we end up putting way too many elements, too many players, and at some point we have to edit and take some out.
I think the main reason we're interested in is because we're deeply layered. We see our work as like an onion that has layers and ways of considering it, paths of avenues of consideration. To us, lenticular just became a way to have a substrate that already has an infinite amount of information on it. And therefore, since we've always been of the more is better school, surely maximalist as opposed to minimalist, when we saw this, it just made sense that we were happy with more.